Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, Ed, aka SavageTechman. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, SavageTechman, aka also known as Ed. And I am super excited about this episode. So in the next 30 minutes or so, or less, of this episode, we are talking all about the phenomenal, whatever, the magnificent, brilliant movie achievement known as Black Panther. I've seen it only once at the recording of this. I intend to see it again, and I saw it in 3D. A funny little story. My wife wanted to go see Black Panther in the Big D, and she told me to choose, and I chose the 3D theater. And it was hilarious because when we were in the theater, surrounded by a bunch of other people, at first it wasn't packed, and then later it was. And this was Thursday when the movie opened. So other people thought the same way that I did, that it cost more for the 3D, which I understand that, but we should have seen it in the Big D, and we all kind of wish we would have seen it in the Big D, just, at least for me, for the sound. And my wife actually said the same thing for the, the whole surround sound that Big D really brings to it. I, of course, want to see it in Big D. The 3D was phenomenal. One of the best of 3D, and I know 3D is kind of a coming-going fad, and it's not necessary for really not many movies, but for this one, it actually did pretty well, and I was pretty impressed by it. But we were in the theater, and I was talking to some people behind me. I was like, yeah, I kind of wish we were in the Big D, so it'd be just a little bit better experience. But it still was a wonderful experience. And let's see, at the recording of this, I believe Black Panther opened with like the 5th largest opening of all time, around 218 million domestic. And it's still got a few places at the time of this recording internationally to open. And it is a phenomenal success. So hopefully you've gone out and seen it. And it's actually, this movie is kind of like Wonder Woman, what Wonder Woman was with a female director and Patty Jenkins, and the empowerment of seeing finally Wonder Woman's story brought to the screen. But this movie is much better than Wonder Woman. Not to take away from the brilliance of Wonder Woman, even though later I did find some plot points and some things in Wonder Woman that made it seem more like Captain America a little bit. But I'm not here to discredit Wonder Woman. I'm here to talk about Black Panther. Black Panther, what an incredible achievement. And the director, this is only his 3rd movie. And what, of course, what I was going to say is, what an incredible achievement. But also, he did have that Disney/Marvel money. So he was able to paint a beautiful canvas in just, not just the visual, but the storyline, the screenplay on this, best screenplay for me so far in 2018. And I know we're only in the recording of this in about mid-February. So I know there'll be other things that are going to just blow me away, I'm sure. But this is going to be one of the top movies of the year for me. I'm already predicting that. But this movie is gone beyond a movie. It's become of movement, especially in the African-American community, for people of color to see strong female characters, to see them not just be in the background and not the traditional roles that we've seen people of color in, but to see And the leading men, of course, like Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger. Wow, incredible. Their performances, just the entire cast, impressed me. I cannot think of the actor's name. It's escaping me now, but I know Miss Saw Gerrera from Rogue One. He was in Phenomenon, one of my favorite movies with John Travolta. He loved Diana Ross. I don't have my notes in front of me, so you know who I'm talking about. I can't think of his name, but he's in there. There's so many people in there, and this world of Wakanda, visually, let's talk about the visuals, okay, first. Visually stunning. To see, in reality, Africa is portrayed as this poor continent, you know, with all these starving people, and then there's realism to that. And there's the escapism of this movie, but there are things like colonialism. Had colonialism not occurred, could someplace like Wakanda, that's fictional, but could a lot of these countries have developed that way? That's a question. That's an interesting, thought-provoking question. There are so many things that this movie touches on, but visually, stunning. It is stunning. Marvel does good with like Asgard and Thor, and, you know, we see these great special effects. We see the just the visuals are incredible, but everything about this movie right now, and yes, there's some hype about it, about this movie, a lot of hype, but it's mostly well-deserved. And I just feel this is a very well-rounded picture, easily one of the best, if not the best. And that's a story for another time, and time's going to tell, but possibly one of the best, if not the best, Marvel movie to date. And this is the 18th Marvel movie in that cinematic universe. So that's saying a lot. You know, there's Iron Man, there's Spider-Man, there's so much. The Thor trilogy. So far at this point, we have 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Now, Infinity War, when it comes out, that's just going to be so rad. It's going to be just totally freaking awesome. It's just going to be over the top, just wonderful. I just going to lose my mind over that. But I've been looking forward to Black Panther since I saw the first trailer. And one thing they did really well is not give away a lot of the movie in the trailer. There are other movies that I really wanted to see that were Marvel movies and weren't, where, you know, they give away all the good stuff in the trailer. And by the time you get to the movie, you're like, okay, they showed you the best that they had, and there's nothing else. There were surprises in this movie. Was there a formula to it? The formula, it's yes, it does kind of follow a formula, but the formula works so well, and it's done so well, and Black Panther feels fresh. And like I'm saying, in this particular episode, I'm trying to do a spoiler-free episode. And yes, I'll be back with a spoiler-filled episode. But there are such strong performances. The female cast, they are not just there. They are intricate to the storyline. They are important. There's not a throwaway character in there. You have Andy Serkis's Claw, and he does a wonderful job. And it's good to see him out of makeup, essentially, you know, because some of his best work is Caesar and the Planet of the Apes. You know what I'm talking about. Movies Rise and War of the Planet of the Apes. Spectacular. And, of course, Gollum in the Lord of the Rings trilogy and all those movies and so many other great things that Andy Serkis has done. It's great to see his character out there and actually see his face and see him acting without motion capture. And, you know, even though he does have the arm, you know, his claw essentially. So his character is very important and intricate to the plot of this film, and very much, I guess, an antagonist in the film. So he gives a great performance. There's some other characters too, but the characters, which this is predominantly 95% African Americans, just front and center, and as it needs to be. And this movie has become more than just a movie. Some one of my Facebook friends said, "Oh, I wish we could focus on real issues in America, not some silly movie." And then, social media isn't kind, unfortunately. If we see something we disagree with, it seems like people just jump on that person, and we all need to, calm it down a little bit, take a step back and breathe and respect others' opinions on things. So I can't agree with him on the fact that this is a silly movie. Yes, it is just a movie, and yes, we get that. But when you look around and you see, especially if you're a youth in this country, if you're a person of color, this is so important to see strong women of color, to see them on the screen, seeing them not being victims, seeing them doing good, being good, leading by example, to see strong male figures on the screen doing the same thing. Chadwick Boseman being T'Challa, taking care of his country. And they're dealing, and this is borderline spoiler, but Wakanda exists because of the vibranium, which isn't much spoiler. I mean, you've seen Captain America and other things, so that's where they got the vibranium for Captain America's shield. And, we've seen that in previous Marvel movies, so that's not much of a spoiler. But the fact that we have this country that has a vibranium, they've developed technology that's built up around, as a power source, that vibranium, and it's allowed them to become a rich, lush country. And essentially they're hidden from the world. And so it does speak on isolationism on a bigger scale, because this Wakandan king, T'Challa, or Black Panther, which Black Panther is the mantle of what the leader of Wakanda becomes. And there's a great trial by combat in there. And so we see that T'Challa is taking care of his people, but it is a kind of isolationist thing. It's like the whole world's gone to hell out there, but here in Wakanda, he's taking care of his own, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, I can't say much more about that without becoming a spoiler, but I think he learns that there's more than just Wakanda. There's a continent out there that's starving. There's problems in the world. And as Black Panther, he can go out there and affect those changes. And there's an integral part of the story. And this story is not just so sci-fi fantasy based. They do have Killmonger's character is rooted in actual, supposed to be times that we live in. And there's a few flashbacks and all that are so integral to the overall story arc of this movie. And so we see that we have that kind of street knowledge that Killmonger brings to it and his perspective. And he's not wrong in everything he says. His methods, from what he's learned and being in the real world, as it were, other than Wakanda, he definitely is a warrior. And there's nothing wrong with that, but he sees the injustices, where T'Challa, being a king, being the Black Panther, is kind of isolated from the world. So it's kind of like he doesn't really know the true violence and what people of color in the world that Killmonger sees every day, that he lived through himself. T'Challa doesn't see that. And so he gets a little bit of an education there. So our hero and our villain, as it were, to an extent, our villain isn't just evil for evil's sake, and he's not necessarily evil either. He just has a different perspective, but his perspective is more, let's go to war. And T'Challa's like, we can share this technology, but we don't have to, be isolationist. So that speaks to a lot of things. It does talk about colonialism. It mentions that. And some of this is borderline spoiler, so if you haven't seen the movie, maybe you should stay away from this episode. And I did kind of say this would be spoiler-free, but there's a beautiful speech that T'Challa gives in this movie that is so uplifting and and it's such a turning point for Wakanda and for Black Panther himself. And so going into Infinity War, that's when we're going to see him next, Black Panther. It's going to be so interesting. And if Infinity War, and I took that dramatic pause because kind of heavy on my heart here thinking about, this 10 years pretty much of building a universe. And I think my prediction, you can call a spoiler alert or not on this, but I'm thinking that a lot of our mainstay characters are going to fall to the hands of Thanos and possibly permanently. So, we may lose Thor, we may lose Hulk, we might lose Iron Man, I don't know. And DC is not afraid to kill off characters, especially their villains. Marvel, even when you think someone's going to die, like Captain America, according to the comics, should have died in Civil War, but he didn't. Of course, he's not necessarily Captain America in Infinity War. It looks like he's going to be Nomad from, based upon the comics or some version of that. They may still call him Captain America, get this man to S.H.I.E.L.D., which is, if you think about it, Captain America saw the rise and fall, like when Winter Soldier of S.H.I.E.L.D., infiltrated by Hydra and all that, pretty much from the inside out, which they never really explained at 50 years of, or whatever, plus that Hydra was there all along, like a sleeper cell in that sense. So interesting there, but that's another conversation for Infinity War, which is just going to be so incredibly awesome. The budget, everything is going to be astronomical, I'm sure. And when we get to our second part of Infinity War, they won't even tell us the title for that because I think it pretty much says what I'm understanding, that Infinity War, it might be, technically it'd be the fourth Avengers movie, like team up kind of movie. And I think the title's going to give away kind of what is like the aftermath. It might even be called Avengers Aftermath or Infinity Aftermath. I don't know. I'm calling it first here, but I don't know. It's going to be something definitely that's going to just be, how do I even say it? It's just it's going to leave you on the floor. And the kind of movies that I like are the kind that just grab you at the heart, pull on those heartstrings, give you that emotion. And if it's a Marvel movie, it's got to be packed full of action. And it needs to reach in, grab your heart, pull your heart out, stomp your heart on the floor, and just leave you on the floor breathless saying, oh my gosh, that movie was incredible. And I will say, not so much the emotion of, and there was some of it, of Black Panther, but it definitely left me on the floor. I'm kind of like, that was an amazing movie. It was a wonderful screenplay. And here's just a little note. So my wife and I are sitting in the theater, and there's this African-American gentleman, and I believe his two sons are with him. And we were looking at the end scene credits, and the gentleman was pointing to the screen, and he said, with hard work, you see all these people that are working in this film. He said, with hard work and dedication, you can be on that screen. Your name can be up there. And he was pointing to the screens. And these two kids, to see the wonderment and the amazement in their eyes, and this gentleman telling them that, yes, you can do this. A friend of mine on Facebook said, you are a king. And I say we're all kings and queens in that sense too, you know what I mean by that. So it's like we're all rulers of our own destiny, and this movie brings that sense of empowerment to especially people of color. And I want to get Wakandan citizenship if I could. I would love to live in Wakanda. First off, it's a nice tropical climate there, so I would like that. No snow, no freezing, no stuff like that. But it's just a beautifully painted picture of infinite possibilities that being in that country and being a part of that experience that Wakanda is, So Marvel, congratulations to him. The writer, director, congratulations. I am so just really, really impressed by this movie. Right now, this is my favorite movie of the year. I haven't seen that many. I know we're only into February at the recording of this particular episode, but already blown away. My expectations were pretty high for this, and they weren't let down. I wasn't saying, oh man, I wish this was this and that. Was there a little part in the middle that was slow? Yes, a little bit. But I tell you, it makes up for it with the action sequences. Some are complaining there's not enough. And there was actually just one review out there. I think it was, not sure, don't quote me on that. I could be wrong, but I read something yesterday on the internet, and basically they were just kind of giving it was okay or not a good movie. Literally one review. Other than that, on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie would have been 100%. Now, I know it was in the upper 90s when I looked at the score last, and I mean, I don't know that affected it, just one bad, negative, or not so good review on the movie affected it or not. But I can tell you 99.99% of people that have watched this movie have gone back and seen it again or came out of just their one viewing and loved it. And I was blown away by it. I am suggesting to everybody, please go out and see this movie. You must. You just have to. You have no choice. You have to see it. If you want to see a good movie, a movie that's going to empower you, that's going to lift you up, that's going to make you dream, to make you feel strong and passionate about movie making and about, if you're a screenplay writer, if you're doing that, you're going to want to look at the screenplay on this. You're going to look at the story development on this. The sound was really good. I need to experience this in IMAX to truly appreciate it, or at least the big D cinema to experience the sound. The sound was pretty good. The 3D was stereoscopic, okay? And there was probably a 2D to 3D conversion. And do you need to see it in 3D? You don't really need to see any movie in 3D. The only movie that ever, and I've said this before, that ever worked for me completely was the first Avatar movie by James Cameron in IMAX 3D. And IMAX 3D, to me, is still the best 3D. Now, the technologies are, changing and getting better, and that's great. That's wonderful. But what I'm speaking to is the fact that the 3D was pretty good on this one. I mean, I think it worked really well. And after a while, for Black Panther, it didn't distract me. It didn't seem like they were purposely putting things to be 3D. And parts of it, like I said, the 3D is not the most important part of this movie. The story is obviously the most important. The empowerment, that's the word I keep coming back to, empowerment, that this movie gives to young kids and showing good, positive role models. That's so very important in these day and times, and all the bad news that you hear out there and all the things that are happening. And it's just really, really awesome to see people like that doing good things, and it's something that is so important that we see this, and kids need to see this movie. It's not overly violent, so you can take your kids to see it. It's a Marvel movie, so it's not going to be, it's not Deadpool, it's not Logan, which is, we're R-rated, and we're brilliant in their own right. It's a family-friendly movie. It's very vital, very important. And I know I'm probably getting to the end here of the episode, and I just keep saying wonderful, wonderful things about Black Panther. I hope to have some more friends on the podcast here so we can talk more about Black Panther. I certainly want to. I want to get into a spoiler-filled episode of this, and I hope I haven't spoiled anything for you yet. But, with 218 million in ticket sales opening weekend, we're looking at, in the first 4 days of this movie, literally it topped the entire box office run of Justice League DC movie there. and that's pretty impressive. It's about the past Thor Ragnarok, which I enjoyed, and Marvel movie, obviously there. It's going to pass Guardians 2, more than likely. I think it may end up around the $500-600 million range, which would put it near where Avengers is. And I'm just talking domestic box office. I'm not talking at all or adding in to those figures the international box office. I don't know that it's opened yet in China or a few places, maybe this weekend from when I'm recording this episode. And when those numbers come in, I think they're going to be big, and it's just going to make the global box office great. And I know that a lot of movies depend upon, it's all a business, and it's got to make money, and it's got to make more and more and more and more and more, and it never ends. But for a quality movie, this is well worth seeing. Do you need to see it in 3D? No, you don't. You'll still love the movie in 2D. 3D enhances it a little bit. If you can see it in big D, pay a little bit more, it would probably be worth it for the sound. If you really want to enjoy it, IMAX 3D would probably be the ultimate. But definitely, you have to see this movie. But if you go ahead and you see this movie, or you don't know anything about Black Panther, and you still go and see this movie, you could start by watching this movie and not know anything about Black Panther other than the fact you've seen him in Civil War, Captain America Civil War, and you can still appreciate this movie. You can still like it for what it is, and you're going to, I promise you, love this movie. And you're going to have to look extremely hard to find things wrong with this movie. But I think you need to focus more on, or I would suggest that you focus more on how important this movie is. This movie is not just a movie, it's become a movement, and it's a sign in Hollywood that we can have people of color in all areas from the story to the director to the actors. We can have that new vision. We don't have to see people of color always suffering. We don't have to see them be drug dealers, drug pushers, bad people. We can see the good, and this movie focuses on the good. And that's one of the reasons the cultural significance of Black Panther is so vital and so important. So I can't say it any more than I've said it now. You have to go out and see Black Panther. And I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Please hit us up on Twitter. Let us know. We're at Geek Homeworld there. We're trying to get the YouTube channel going, so I really need some people to go over to our YouTube channel. We've got these episodes will appear, the audio format of them, but I do have like a video, companion video for our last episode that talks about transhuman evolution, which is kind of out there merging of human and artificial intelligence. So we cover a lot of different things here on the podcast, but I have just a little short kind of video montage thing I put together. It's not the greatest thing you've ever seen, but it's something that I think you might enjoy, a companion to our previous episode before this one. So if you could check that out, that would be super awesome. Please go to that YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, and when we upload something, you'll get a notification and you can check out the podcast. You can also go to geekhomeworld.libsyn.com, and that's our main website, and always download for free the episodes. We're on iTunes, Geek Homeworld, on iTunes, iTunes podcasts there. So you can, have it in your iPod or whatever it is you do. And when new episodes come available, they'll download and you can listen to them. Anyway, please check that out. Please let us know your thoughts and feelings at Geek Homeworld on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook and other places. Yeah, like our Facebook page, Geek Homeworld. Anyway, I hope you enjoy Black Panther and really go out. Take a friend to see it. Take someone you hadn't talked to in a long time to go see it. And you're going to walk out of that theater thinking you're a king, that you can rule the world. And guess what? You can. The power is your power. You have that power, and you should feel empowered by watching this movie. Everyone should. So please check out Black Panther, and thank you so much for listening. I'm SavageTechman, a.k.a. Ed, and thank you for listening to this episode, our latest episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast. Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld with your host, SavageTechman. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+. Follow and interact with us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on iTunes and leave a review. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Read our thoughts on Blogger. See you again on the Geek Homeworld.